Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there. It's Gemma, and this is episode number 261 of the Cognitive Podcast, the news series. This one has to be called SoCalFiber Festival 2025, but let me tell you, it could also be called Happy Thanksgiving because today is Thursday, November 27th, as I finally record this, or it could be called Beaten to a Pulp by my schedule this past 2 weeks, or even, on Friday I gotta get my face drilled. I've had the craziest week, and hopefully I'm going to filter all this stuff down for you all to make sense. But I do want you to know your comments are very welcome. Please comment on the blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com, or feel free to comment on our group on Ravelry. In the warm thanks department, first, I just saw there's a few new comments on CFR 11.5. And I see we get Plex Lipa and Drew Caitlin. I need to add you to the list, so I will get into that. But thank you for being there, and I have an offer of classes, I think, from Sustainable Living. So this is getting very exciting. But I'm not going to deal with this because I'm right on top of recording episode 262, which I hope will have a name like, I'm so much better now. It's really just been very crazy. At any rate, I'm glad that I'm finally sitting down and doing this in the warm thanks department that I actually do know. First, I want to thank Natty Lady for the news of Scotland's reception of a certain convicted felon, the part about closing the girls' schools, and I have to tell you, it will always be Scotland the Brave in my heart. That made me feel really, really good. It was a very interesting time in my life to live in Scotland because they're living in a slightly different mindset about their relationship to the world than the English are, and I suspect the Welsh would be, and the Irish are. Yeah, here's a surprise. They have national identity. That's what I just said. But Natty Lady, I cannot tell you how good that made me feel. Meanwhile, Sustainable Living, speaking of which, I want you to know I'm looking for those bobbins. If I don't find them by February, I will be bringing all my bobbins with me, and you and I will look together. I'm going to get you those bobbins, assuming I have them. I don't see why I would not have them. I just have to locate them. In the meantime, I will try to dedicate myself to doing a good toss of my materials and finding them. I'd really like to give them to you. It seems like a very reasonable thing, and I have no use for them. I'm certainly not invested in selling them separately from the wheel because I won't even know which bobbins I have in my hand since you have the flyers. I have nothing to try them onto. I am thrilled you got that flyer, though, I must say. In the meantime, I'd like to thank my communities on Finch, on Reddit, on the ground in the Santa Clarita and Antelope Valleys, and most important of all, in this group. You can see one of my burbs. I think that's Courage. And she is at home in her autumn-themed birdhouse, but she is also in Paro in Bhutan. And I have to say, I really like Finch for the fact I would have known nothing about Paro if I hadn't had it. The creaking that you hear is Minerva trying to open the bedroom door to creep out. It's starting to sound like a haunted house in here. In the meantime, you can see my two burbs. I think one's in the Sonoran Desert as well. CFR 11.5, you can go to the information thread and you will see the new posts that I have just briefly mentioned. I am so, shall we say, betrammeled right now that I am not going to go read those. I will save them for the next episode. But Yes, the information is right there. And I have to tell you how happy I was to meet, oh my goodness, so many of our people at the Fiberfest, and to know that they also want to come to CFR 11.5. I'm so excited. All right, meanwhile, mark your calendars, will you? And keep an eye on that thread because things are going to develop. And the registration, again, send the $10 via PayPal to me. You can see my email where I accept PayPal there on the show notes. And of course, you really should pay at the time of registration. Keep my life simple. But meanwhile, yes, we're well past the sign-up date of November 4th. You can also see links to information I've been carrying now since CFR 11. I think the most important one there is Loretta 1031 left us a very comprehensive message about donations she would like for her crocheting club for school kids. And, let's be real here. A club like this is going to have its economic challenges, so anything we can donate to help her, because she has a huge amount of kids who want to be into this club. This is very, very cool, by the way. She's very successful with it. She was showing us a video of one kid at the retreat. It was just wonderful. All right, meanwhile, you can see the link to my information on what you can find at our local Michael's for embroidery and sewing, and I think a little bit of yarn information. And you can see the wonderful Drew Caitlin's link to her Blackwork resources, because I just can't bear to take that off. I mean, yes, that was CFR 11. I really have to move it over to the other part of the resources that come later in the podcast, but I still am in love with it. Meanwhile, you might be saying, hey, Gemma, what's on your hooks and needles? Well, I don't even know in what order to say some of this stuff. We went, Loretta 1031 and I, to the SoCalFiber Festival at the fairgrounds at the Fairplex down in Pomona. And it was really fun. I went with Loretta, and to my shock, she said, sure, I'll ride the train and the buses with you. And I said, you will? Because I couldn't imagine anybody else wanting to do that, because going out to Pomona is kind of a long haul. I thought she'd want to take her car and meet me there. Thing is, getting to the Fairplex from where we live is a long haul, no matter what you do. All right, so we decided to do this. And you're going to hear this in bits and pieces all through this episode. But the thing that I finished, we both bought yarn to make souvenir hats. We bought the same yarn and pom-pom and needles to make the souvenir hat that Stunning String Studio had provided. And I will talk about that later on as something I really like. But you can see my variation on it right there. That I kind of made my own kit, and Loretta and I both experimented with the pattern they gave us, and I also experimented with the patterns I really like, one of which is the sailor's watch cap, but another is called My Baker's Hat. Anyway, I ended up kind of combining those, and I forgot to change needles after the ribbing. So the whole thing for me is on size 7 needles, which work just fine. That's 84 stitches. If I do this again on 7s, I would use 92 stitches as recommended by the My Baker's Hat, but there we go. So you can see me wearing it, and I broke one of my cardinal rules. I put a pom-pom on it. The reason I have this rule is every time I try to put a pom-pom on a hat, they're too blooming big. And everywhere you move, the pom-pom is swinging around and drives me nuts, no matter how firmly I try to tack it down. But there is a solution, and I'm wearing it right there. I did not post a picture of Loretta's finished object because I didn't have her permission to post it. But it is really interesting because she went with the pattern they gave us, whereas I added ribbing. And her brim is basically, it's purled. I mean, in other words, she just knit it all the way and then turned the brim over and pinned it down. And so it's a pearl brim. I had never seen that done before. It looks really cute. I kind of like it. I may try it myself. And I will talk more about these kits in a minute. But there I am in my finished SoCalFiber Festival 2025 souvenir hat. in progress. The stash toss is at 92 skeins in. I did add 4 from the Fiber Fest, and I've already taken one out for that hat. And I am working on another skein even as we speak. So not much work on anything. I worked a little bit on the second arm of the Cocoa Strange Brew on the train on the way down. But on the way back, I was working on the souvenir hat. Okay, meanwhile, one of the skeins I got, and this is Stunning String Studio, but it's a different colorway called Beach Sand. I think Beach Sand, Beach Glass, something like that. I think it's Beach Sand. I thought of it as Calico Cat. When you look at it on the skein or on the ball, it looks like blotches of Calico Cat colors. However, when you knit it, it's gorgeous. It does not look in that picture as good as it does in real life. It just comes out very evenly spaced bits of all these blues and grays and different shades of brown, and in one or two places a little burgundy streak. It's very interesting. And I have never seen a short variegation that worked this well. It is spectacular in this hat. So I have just gotten myself past the 3-inch brim. Now, in both the patterns I'm using, the Sailor's Watch Cap and the My Baker's hat, they use 2x2 rib. I decided to go with 1x1 on this one, more as an experiment to see what I got, see if I like it. I really think, looking at it now, what I need to do is either go up a needle size on that brim or else go up to the 92 stitches that they recommend for the pattern. And meanwhile, on the body of the hat, the brim I'm doing in size 7, and I just switched to the size 9s, which both patterns recommend. So we're going to see how that goes. But what I'm really doing, you can tell, I'm trying to tailor a watch cap to my own tastes. One of the things I've learned is the 4-inch brim on the Sailor's Watch Cap is just a little too much brim. I like the 3-inch brim much, much better. So now I'm tinkering around with needle sizes. Hey, Gemma, what about gauging the pattern? No. No, I'm not in it for that. It's true, I am following gauge, I believe. But that's not what I'm there for. I want to see what looks good on me. I thought 92 stitches, as the My Baker's hat recommends, would be just too much. But that might be my next experiment, because after all, these only take a skein of yarn. I've got skeins all over the place, and it seems like a lot of fun. Meanwhile, I haven't done anything else. Today is the first day of my 4-day Thanksgiving vacation, and basically I've been sitting in a chair all day being dopey because I am so tired right now, I cannot tell you. I would like to think I'm going to work a little bit on sewing together some of the quilt squares just to have them all organized into a pattern and in one place instead of floating around in their individual squariness, small squariness on my love seat in the studio. However, I haven't been spinning, so kind of live with it. I still want to point out I plan to bring an Ashford traditional Saxony bench wheel to CFR 11.5 if somebody's interested in that. I'm looking at a second wheel. It might be an antique wheel, my flax wheel, because I just would like somebody to buy it. I'd like to move it out of my house because it's kind of sitting in a closet right now, and I just think it belongs somewhere else, and I don't want to give it to an antique store. They won't know what they've got. I also think it can be returned to spin with some careful handling, but I'm not going to be doing that. Meanwhile, let's get on to a strategy, shall we? Well, I have a few things going this week because it is that time of year where I talk about planning for the holidays. And I do want to say briefly, as tomorrow will be Black Friday in America, that is the day of the great sales in the U.S., when people drop their prices and we get all these fantastic deals and stuff. This is the time of year I save up for. I have to be honest. I've got quite a bit socked away, and I use it at this time of year to buy all the household supplies. Now, in America, the prices are going up really badly under the current economy. It's just real. I'm not going to go into those politics. I've already hinted at why I think that's happening, and thank you to Natty Lady for those of you who need the clue. But I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to say is Watch out in the Black Friday sales. People have been marking their prices up so that when they quote unquote drop them for Black Friday, they look cheap. Really try to be careful with that. Pay attention to those prices. Don't assume this year that a Black Friday sale is anything special. But if there is a sale, now is the time to restock everything in your house. Soap, toilet paper, laundry detergent, deodorants, all that sort of dry stuff. This is a good moment to load up on it. I have a few suppliers that I like. They're in the links in the show notes for these things because I like organic soaps and shampoos and whatnot. This is the time to use it. I also like organic cleaning agents, including white vinegar, because I'm allergic to the chemical ones, and the research shows white vinegar and various other organic substances work just as well at cleaning. Having said that, this is the time, but please be careful this year. Also, this is the time to reduce your stress by avoiding micro-stimulations. That is, with the holidays, you have enough on your mind. People coming over, going to parties, family events, dealing with difficult relatives, helping your kids stay on track during the holidays. In short, you have enough stress happening. So take the stress out of your life that you do not need. And that is silence all your computers. Seriously. Silence your text notifications, your phone notifications. Stop looking at those brief hits from online services like Reddit or Instagram or Facebook. Silence those. Those little interruptions all day keep you on edge and keep your corticosteroids high. You remember your corticosteroids? They're the things that you overpump for fight or flight, like when you're constantly overstimulated. And then they break down into toxins that are going to, degrade your cardiovascular system, okay? So let's avoid that, shall we? You're supposed to have a normal cycle of corticosteroids that helps you to sleep at night and wakes you up in the morning. That is enough. Do not add to it with these micro-stimulations. Hey, Gemma, how do I do that? Go into your settings and silence all the apps. Or recirculate them so that they don't send you notifications live on your phone. They can send you messages and whatnot, because that's going to come in a second, how you handle that. But don't let them interrupt you on your phone or your computer. Please go in and limit the drop-down flags on your phones and your computer screens to your very close loved ones. If you're a doctor, to your patients, okay, I got to do that. But the rest of you, just the people who you would drop everything and run to in an emergency. Your kids, your spouse, your best friend. The rest of that stuff, send it to a text message. Send it to an email. But hey, Gemma, that just means I'm going to have a pileup of those. Yes, you are. And here's part 2 of this. So then you pick a time in the morning or in the evening or maybe in both, a limited time where you read all those things. Now here's how I know about this. This is what I do as a psychologist. This is how you manage it when you have to handle patients all the time, because I am not in a setting as a doctor right now where I can handle emergencies. I do not have access to a medical team in my current setting. So what I have instead is a lovely message on my phone that says, if this is a life-threatening emergency, hang up immediately and dial 911 or go to an ER, because I cannot provide that kind of support, whereas an ER and 911 can. I want you to think of your life the same way. Someone on Reddit said a few nights ago, all you people born in 1980, what has changed in a way you don't like in the world? I'm going to tell you, as someone born in 1960, this has. I used to live a relatively uninterrupted life where I only knew what was going on when I went home and the phone rang. And when did the phone ring? Usually in the morning or the early evening. There was an etiquette that you didn't call people late at night. Now, in the 80s, they invented phone machines so you could get voice messages, but you still had to go home and turn on your phone machine to get them. And yes, it's true, I did have a cat named Guinevere, a part Persian, gorgeous calico cat, who learned how to record herself on the answering machine. So I would come home and frequently get wow, wow. Let me tell you, it's been an interesting life with technology. But that's what I miss. And the point is, what am I really missing? I'm right. I'm missing a time where these micro stimulations were not always harassing me. So I'm going to tell you now, if you believe you need all that stuff, I'm not going to argue with you. Because I think the current or more recent generations probably do feel more like that than I would. But I would tell you, at least in this time of year, with all the stress you have, everybody in school finishing projects, including your kids, if you have those, you having to close the books on your business or your work for the end of the calendar year, all the kids being home, all this stuff. At a time like this, buying all the holiday presents, at a time like this, you don't need all that stimulation. So please turn down your micro stimulations. The most important thing for me has been I only answer my phone for 30 minutes every morning and 30 minutes every evening, and that's it. The rest of the time, if you leave me a voice message, I'm not going to hear it till I get to one of those 30-minute windows. Reduce your stimulations. And that means in those 30 minutes, I do all my skimming of Reddit or Instagram. Okay, let's get on to Offshoot. Well, I did not run for 16 days because we had Noah's flood going on up here last week and this week. I can't explain why. I want to say first, I have a great job and I have good bosses and there's no complaints there. But this week, there was kind of a crash that I had nothing to do with at work. And I had to do a lot of repair work myself to make things happen. And so it was a very, very difficult and challenging week, and more than a few tears were shed, which is not something I get to say a lot in my job. So I did not run. I was just trying to keep myself going from day to day. However, two good news is in there. I did go see my doc, and yes, my blood sugar is great. I'm in good health. And then I went to the dentist, and that went pretty well too, but got to get some work done next week. I don't care, because next week can't possibly be as challenging as the last 2 weeks were. I'm just marching through obligations now and getting myself into the holidays. So today I began to run again. The last time I ran, I believe, was the Santa Clarita 5K, which is just embarrassing to say. Well, today was the Santa Clarita Storm, their kids' running group, their turkey trot. This one is brutal. I ran it last year. You may vaguely remember me talking about the fact that it's on dirt and you're running up and down hills. Holy manoli. I still did a pretty good time. I came in just under 45 minutes. I think my time was 14 minutes and like 30 seconds per mile. Let me explain to you that I was running 10-minute intervals with 1 minute in between, and I still managed to do this. So I am pretty happy about that. My son, of course, totally smoked me, as he always does. In the show notes, you can see pictures. He's wearing the t-shirt, and we both have our medals there. And then afterwards, we did go off to the first feast of Thanksgiving, which was at Starbucks because all the restaurants were closed for Thanksgiving. So you can see us there feasting on our cheese and egg box. And he also had a cinnamon roll, and we both had coffee. My coffee was abysmal. It was really burnt. I came home and made my own, much, much better. But we did have a fantastic time this morning. We got home, and I've been dopey ever since. But the next race is on Saturday morning, and this is Thursday night. So tomorrow I have to go pick up our packets. And then hopefully I will take a train somewhere, anywhere, just to get a little change of scene. The weather is beautiful. It's just a bit cold. I did run in long tights this morning. It was chilly this morning. Okay, meanwhile, you can see the links for donating your old running shoes and your old medals. I want to point out, when you donate old athletic medals, they are going to disabled people for, not for Special Olympics, they have their own medals, but for various challenges and, it's a good thing to do, and it gives you a place to send those medals because they drive me nuts. I've got piles of them around the house. The used running shoes, if you donate them, they are not going to other runners. They're simply going to people who need shoes. I want to point that out because someone was saying, well, if you can't run in them, why would you give them to someone else who might get damaged running in them? They're not going to be running shoes. Meanwhile, you can see on the calendar my upcoming races, and it's a little scary because I have the Santa Clarita Turkey Trot on Saturday morning, as I said, and then I don't have anything until March 1st. So I will be hunting down a jingle jog, still not finding anything real close that I want to do, but I must have a jingle jog. I really can't bear going 4 full months without a race. It's going to be interesting. I have looked in Anaheim for the weekend. I'm down at Evolution, but no luck so far. I'll find something because there's a million of them. Let's get on to the fluffy books. All right, so in the fluffy books, I'm listening to Assistant to the Villain. Actually, I believe now I've moved on to Apprentice to the Villain, the second book in the series. And it's good. I can't listen to it in bed because the narrator has a scratchy voice, which does do well in this story. It's a very snarky kind of story, but it does not do well to sleep. So at night, I am listening to the wonderful Diane Freeman's book, A Daughter's Guide to Mothers and Murder. This is the 8th book in the Countess of Harley series. They are light and frothy and adorable and still somehow get a murder in. They're not terribly spicy or violent and yet still somehow get a good marital relationship and a murder in. So I'm enjoying that immensely. I'm also reading The Benevolent Society of Ill-Mannered Ladies. Now there's a lot of trends out there in the books, and one of them is to do these Regency books of spinsters doing things they're not supposed to do. And I would say that Beatrice Hyde Clare ones fit into this. And this is another of that ilk. This one is really good. This is by Allison Goodman. And it's about fraternal twin sisters, something I can relate to. And it's just too complex to get into. But it is a good plot. It is beautifully written. It's just a great one. I do recommend this. So far, there's 2 books in this series. I'm already looking forward to book 2. Really, really good. The Benevolent Society of Ill-Mannered Ladies. Something I really like. Okay, here's where I'm going to talk about that hat I made. Something I really like. Stunning String Studios' attempt to make a beginner knitting kit somewhat akin to the Woobles' attempt to make a learn to crochet by learning amigurumi on a cute little character. Now, this brings up the painful subject of the Woobles. The Woobles are a brilliant business plan, and they're very, very good projects, I have to say, for what they are. And the idea behind the Woobles is anybody can learn to crochet if you have good enough video instruction and good enough materials. And they do a pretty good job, and I've reviewed them before. Now, they're very expensive. I think now the base kit is up to $40, and you can no longer decide if you want a hook or not. You have to buy the hook, which I find really annoying. However, the videos that go with the Woobles that you get when you plug in your code on the download screen and all that, those videos are top shelf. They do a fantastic job. I recently got I believe it's called Mini Crafts, Druid Bear, and Highland Cow. They want to be the Woobles, but they have not done the job fully. I don't quite admire them. You can do mini crafts if you've done Woobles first. Do not do mini crafts to learn from. All right, now the big problem is, can this be done with knitting? And it is important to realize when I say that the kits I've just mentioned all come with the craft started and with all your tools like your crochet hook and your tapestry needle to sew things together. So how would we do that with knitting? Well, this week when we got to the Fiber Festival, first thing we ran into when came into exposition whole 9 was Stunning String Studios, which I'd never heard of, but Loretta reacted with great joy and said they're really great. Turns out they are really great. And I like them a lot. However, we walked in and there was a kit, and it had this beautiful, natural kind of oatmeal flecked yarn. So little bits of black and medium brown in this background natural color. And what they had done was they took an inexpensive bamboo needle. I believe it's a 10-inch or a 12-inch double point needle, for knitting in the round. Not a true DPN, but rather a circular needle. There we go. And they got a size 9 bamboo with plastic tubing and joins. And they cast on, I went up to 84. I think they had cast on something like 65. And they gave you everything you need in the bag and said, here is your Learn to Knit kit. And all they wanted you to do was knit. Just knit the hat and not even do decreases. You were going to do a tube. And at the end, you would cinch it off, attach the included pom-pom, which is huge in my opinion, and that would be it. So you just knit, stockinette all the way around, and you cinch it off and you attach the pom-pom. And they gave you everything you needed in that. I don't believe they might have given you the tapestry needle. I think they did. Very complete kit. Now, it had its pros and cons, but something I really like right now is what they did here. Okay, so whatever I say after this, they brought this in at $35, which is cheaper than the current base price of a Wooble. And they taught a skill that instead of giving you an amigurumi, gives you a piece of clothing, which I think is more attractive to many of us than making a little stuffed toy. So there was the kit in front of us, and Loretta said, oh, I want to try this. Now, Loretta has knitted before, but she hadn't knitted in a while, and she was feeling a bit more on the inexperienced side. And so I looked at the kit, and there were a few things that stood out to me. One, I know who I am when I knit in the round. I do not want to knit on a short circular needle. There is certainly a school of thought that you can knit a hat on like a 12-inch or a 10-inch needle, and you're just knitting around and around and around. It's not magic loop. I don't like it because I always feel like it's too tight, that it's just a very cramped way to knit. But I do know people who make all their hats that way. So this was not for me. On top of that, they're using bamboo needles. When I was a beginner, I did like bamboo, so I do see what they're doing. They're not trying to teach a newbie how to knit with magic loop. They're just going to have them go round and around. Made perfect sense. They're using bamboo because it's stickier. You're less likely to have your stitches go shooting off the slick metal needles that I use, like Addis and Chowgoos. So I want to say this made sense for what they were trying to do. However, few problems. First, too few stitches. They were going to come up with a hat, maybe a child's hat. It just wasn't big enough. And I thought, well, okay, but I think some of us would rather just make an adult hat and see if it works on us. We certainly wanted to. So, the first thing I would say to Stunning String is really cast on 84 or 92. Make a bigger cast on. And also, there was enough yarn. When I made my hat, I have a ball of extra yarn sitting around here. Second thing, I didn't like the needles, but I am experienced. So, Loretta bought the kit, and she made the hat on the train. She made it that night. She's a very fast knitter for a newbie. She's way faster than I am. And I kind of tore it apart, and I tried with 65 stitches and said no. And then I went and I looked at my Ravelry notes. And let me tell you, this is the best justification for notes on Ravelry I've ever seen. So I looked at my Ravelry notes, and I said, okay, I have been getting by casting on 84 on my sailor's watch caps. So I did that. And I said, I want ribbing, so I did that. However, I'm impressed because They also in the kit give you a little leather tag like the ones I had made that said Gemma made me in Latin. They gave you those little leather tags. They give you one with a heart that said made with love. Very cute. And you could use that to take your brim, which is going to be in stockinette, turn it inside out so you have a brim, and then you would tamp it down. Those you had to sew on, but you would tamp it down by sewing it on. That would keep the brim upright, which is great. So, really good kit. I have to tell you, I really like Stunning String Studios' attempt here to have a beginner knitter kit. The only thing I would say, slightly longer needle. Now, we did have problems, the joins of the needle. If you have this kind of inexpensive needle with plastic tubing as the join on the circular needle, it does tend to bend like a soda straw. So we had a little problem with that. But even so, this is Stunning String Studios kit, and I will see if I can put a link in the show note, but I certainly have their name in the show note, and you can Google it. And I really like the idea, and I think it's much better than the recent attempt by the Woobles to do a thing they called loopables, which I'm not even going to try to explain. I think it's a lousy idea, and I just looked at the pattern and said, yeah, no. So not going to do that. I think the world has room for a really good set of beginning knitter kits. And I think Stunning String, by doing a hat this way, has really come up with a good idea here. Now, one caveat, Loretta did not do the tube like they wanted you to do. I instead pulled up the sailor's watch cap, and we worked out a way for her to do regular decreases in 7 divisions around the hat so that it would look like a smoother top. It wouldn't look like something weird out of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, So we didn't want a stocking cap. So we did make changes. We did both use regular decreases in our hats. Nonetheless, this is a great idea, and I hope Stunning String will mess with it a little to improve it. And the kits were very cute. Now, what actually happened then? She walked in and she bought the kit. I looked at the kit and said, number one, I don't want those needles. I want metal needles, and I want long metal needles so I can use them for sweater knitting as well, and I want to do magic loop on something this small. So what I did was made my own kit. I bought a skein of the same yarn, which is beautiful. It's their Legacy worsted in the colorway Natural, I think. And then I bought a little tag, that little leather tag, and I think I bought it from someone other than them. What I did buy from them, they had in the kit needle stoppers, needle blockers, and they were Highland cows, which this is what made me even do this. I saw those little Highland cows and went crazy, as Loretta will no doubt tell people. I started doing my best Leyland Scott's imitation, screaming, "We Highland cows," and I'm not going to do it here because I'm too shame-based when I'm this tired. Anyway, I did get the cow needle stoppers from them and the yarn. And then I did find a place that had small pom-poms, and I bought one of them. It worked great. I love my new souvenir hat. I also bought another skein of their yarn because it was so handsome, and that's the one I was just telling you, the Calico Cat. That's called Beach Sand, I think. No, Minerva's trying to hell raise here. I really like Stunning Strings stuff, I'm just going to say. Meanwhile, I continue with back episodes on Proton, episodes 1 to 50 of the new series. Hopefully this weekend I will get down to compressing episodes 51 to 100 of the new series. Yes, I still have to get those missing episodes from the kind listener who supported that. Right now I'm so tired I can't think that way, but I do want to go and recover those. Put a lid on it, not a thing. Blather. All right, I've told you already a bit about the SoCalFiber Fair. You can see all the pictures. I don't even know whose stalls those are, but if you blow them up, I think you can see the labels. I just went crazy and forgot to take pictures, and there was just so much. It was very much like going to Stitches West used to be. And the interesting thing, this is the third SoCalFiber Fest. The first one was kind of disorganized from what I heard, so I've never bothered to go down. But this year, I was very impressed By the way, I have Minerva crawling all over my lap right now, and so I'm kind of getting irregular how I'm holding the recorder, so if it sounds a little bad now, you know why. Remember when I used to record in a car, in the Prius of Love? I know, you'd think this would be better, right? But no. There she goes. Okay, I just took a lot of pictures, and I was so overexcited by the time I got through that giant exposition hall with Loretta. But we had a blast. There's one beautiful sweater project there, the Woolly Weekend Poncho Kit, where I looked at it and said, no, but I do want to get that pattern, and I want to make it into a Fair Isle sweater instead of a poncho, because it's adorable. And you can see bazillions of skeins of fabulous yarns, and I apologize to whoever stall that is, because for the life of me, I know I had a reason for taking those pictures. I'm wondering if that is Dizzy Blondes. Okay, I'm not even going to say it. Meanwhile, while we were there, we met all sorts of wonderful cognitive people. And I'm afraid I'm going to forget people as I go through this, but I just want to thank everybody. We had people we desperately missed, like Brenda. I'm looking at you, and I can't think. Peachy, and I know there's one more, and I can't think who it is. We missed you desperately at CFR 11. We had a lot of our CFR 11 crew and a lot of our 11.5 crew. So wonderful to see, Stacy and Drew and was it Plex Lipa? Anyway, boy, was it fun. Boy, was it fun. I did not expect to have such a good time. I will be going next year. They had a beautiful hat pattern designed by Nancy Bates. This is the one who is doing all the hat designs for the national parks and for the 50 states. She was there. I did not get a chance to fangirl her. I am still regretting it. The other great thing was we ran into the Riverside, I believe it's the Riverside Spinning Guild. Okay, I'm just going to put this in here. It is the Riverside Knitting Guild. So please edit this in your head, okay? Because I don't want to keep interrupting the flow of the podcast. And the interview with them comes right after my sign-off, but before the final extra message. Anyway, I interviewed them, so you're about to hear from them. And also Warm Up America. That one might be a little choppy. We had a few problems with that interview. But I interviewed them to hear what they were doing. The Riverside Guild is taking emotional support chickens and giving them to kids in court who need comfort and to disabled people who need comfort. That has been a recent charity for them. They will talk about it. I want to really acknowledge them for this. And I want to also acknowledge the contributions of the Knitting Tree LA, who are the originators of the emotional support chickens. It's a beautiful project, and I'm imagining my flock is going to wend its way to them. In the meantime, I talked to Warm Up America. They are knitting and crocheting squares of blankets, which you then send to your local joiner, who will sew those together to make various patterns. They don't just make a plain blanket. They come out beautifully, and these are for people who need blankets. They came all the way from Texas for this one, I think. Well, they're based in Texas. Actually, I think we had a local joiner who was running this. But hopefully you will hear about this in the interviews. So what happened after that? We went to dinner at the hotel. We didn't have a car with us, so we were really having to use the Sheraton Fairplex, which was fine. It was perfectly good dinner. We got to watch everybody come in wearing beautiful knitted clothing. The next day we got up and we went to brunch and stayed there for hours knitting and chatting and drinking coffee with a great wait person. She was fabulous, and I cannot think of her name, but we loved her because she was so overworked, basically managing way too many tables. So she was thrilled that we sat there a long time. We did tip appropriately, let me tell you. And again, I got to meet the designer behind Dragonfly Fibers, who sat at the table next to us and wore the Art Nouveau sweater in Dragonfly sock weight. The variegated was drop dead gorgeous. The main color was a soft gray. Oh boy. So Sunday basically was devoted to getting ourselves back to the Antelope Valley. We did, by the way, take the Antelope Valley line on Metrolink, and then we took the A train. I think it used to be the yellow line that goes up towards Pasadena in one direction from LA Union Station, and we rode that all the way up to the Laverne Fairplex exit, and then we had to walk about a mile to get ourselves down to the Exposition and the Sheraton. It was worth it. Here's the other great thing. Loretta 1031 was fabulous company. And I really got a reminder why it's been so great working with her on the CFRs. That she is such a steady, reliable person to have working with you. And I became aware of how I never would have gotten through a CFR without her. That her quiet presence and her dedication to really working hard has been amazing all these years. I just want to say that now. And it was so nice to be with her for 2 days. We had so much fun. I could not stop chattering, and she put up with it. Heaven bless her. But it was so nice. We caught the A train back, and then we got to LA Union and caught the train back, and we went all the way up. She got on, I think, at Palmdale, and I got on one station later at Acton. It was so great. Thank you so much, Loretta. I'm looking forward to next year. In the meantime, the usual links to the hotlines for our siblings in the LGBTQIA plus communities, because, remember, I don't really care what you think about this. What I do care is mature adults do not harm people who are different than we are. Isn't that right? Right. Okay. And, of course, there's the links, speaking of that, to resources for people who are living in fear of ICE, which is most of us at this point, since they're arresting citizens of all nationalities at this point, because they have quotas to make. In the meantime, you can see the usual community resources, the books I've used, my favorite purchasing resources, and the skills and techniques that I like. And you can see my upcoming calendar. Today is Thanksgiving. I'm going to leave it on there because I have today through Sunday off. Thank you, heaven. I'm exhausted. And you can see my races, the Evolution of Psychotherapy Conference, CFR 11.5. So many good things coming up. Finally, Minerva gets the last word, and the last word is cat cam, you say? No, cat scam. So I go away and I activate the cat camera, pointing at her waterer. You can see it right in the very front of the pictures. It's that big clear cylinder with the black lid. And then behind it, back by the wall, you can see her automatic feeder. You can also see her scamming people. So there you see my son. He's looking right into the camera because it activated. So he thought Minerva had a problem. And if you look at it, you will see it's 10:10 p.m. But there's my son thinking the cat is starving. So he's going in there to make sure she has food because he can press a button and give her more food. You can also see my beloved spouse. He is going in there at 6:15 a.m., which is right before her food drops. And if you look, he's got his hand on the bowl because he's giving her food. Yes, Minerva was going in there, triggering the camera and carrying on. And then the boys would go in and feed her. I came home and found her fat as butter, happy to see me, but not desperate at all, because she has been cat scamming with her cat camming. And so in the last picture, you can see her drinking from her water fountain too. She likes to pretend she hates the water fountain because she wants me to put water in the bathtub for her to drink. But when I am not looking, she drinks long and deep from that fountain, which is fresh, moving water, right? The very final picture there of her, you can see her laughing, her villain's laugh, into the smeary mirror. I don't know why it's smeary. I don't know if she's kissing it or the water from that fountain's getting on it. But if you look, she is laughing a maniacal cat laugh and admiring herself in the mirror because she is becoming the essence of cat scamming villainy. Finally, I couldn't resist the cartoon of the dog and the cat at the pearly gates, where someone sitting in a large golden throne says, "Were you a good dog?" And the dog answers, and then the person says, "Were you a good cat?" And the cat answers. And it's very funny. You've probably seen the cartoon, but I'm not going to totally spoil it for you. Having said this, why is my cat turning into a scam artist? Because my cat understands that she lives in community with us. And in the community, when we take care of each other, we are taking care of ourselves. Now, like my cat, the scammer, you will get scammed sometimes when you do this. However, The health of the community protects the well-being of the individual, even in spite of the occasional scam. When we work as a community, we are protecting ourselves and each other. Having said that, everybody stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll probably talk to you really soon. Bye-bye. Okay, so I am so tired. I'm at the SoCalFiber Festival, and I have Mary and Amanda from the Riverside Knitting Guild. And I'm sort of stunned because they've got this wall full of emotional support chickens, and they're going to donate them. So, of course, this leads me to ask the inevitable questions. Mary, what should we all know about the Riverside Knitting Guild? Anything you want us to know?
The Riverside Knitting Guild has been in existence for 30 years. We are very education forward with community, and part of our community is that we do community outreach. So that is what started the emotional support chicken, was because we wanted to do a community outreach program. And I think we all have had more fun than we should have. We would not have been able to do this, though, without the very generous support of the Knitting Tree LA. They really stepped up and helped us out. And so we have knitted chickens, we have crocheted chickens, we have little chickies, and it's been a lot of fun and a learning process all the way along. And personally, for me, it feels good to know where they're going. You know, we started making them and we were looking around for great groups, and we found a couple of places, and it was members going, hey, I got a place. So that was, I thought, great.
Okay, so this is going to lead us to the natural segue to Amanda, who's going to tell us about where they're donating the chickens.
So we have about 20 chickens here. We have already donated about 30 of them. Between those 50, we are sending them to two different places. One is the Riverside Restorative Transformation Center. It is a mental health facility that helps people who need to get help, get stabilized, get back on their feet, and hopefully go back into the community. They are people that are both on conservatorship or might be going through some kind of court process. The other place that they are going is the Riverside Unified School District high schools. Each high school has a wellness center where children can come for immediate emotional regulation and support, but also they have regular therapy sessions there with certified therapists. And the chickens are also there for them to help them with whatever they need emotionally and mental health-wise.
Okay, so I'm just going to say it. I'm really impressed. I'm so grateful I met you ladies. I think this is the best of the knitting and crocheting world when we do things like this for our communities. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Hey, thank you.
So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.